And for Asia, a bit of an off-season question for you. As Tip Hayes was recently announced to do Unrivaled, it feels like half the aces are on the Unrivaled roster at this point. Is that something that you are interested in?
Interested? I'm not gonna completely cut it out because you never know.
Caitlin Clark has become the name on everyone's lips, the rising star who is single-handedly transforming women's basketball and packing arenas with eager new fans. But her skyrocketing popularity hasn't come without controversy. In fact, it ruffled quite a few feathers, and none more so than those of WNBA superstar A'ja Wilson. The latest wave of criticism from A'ja Wilson is turning heads, especially as she takes aim at Caitlin Clark's role in the midst of the unrivaled drama. What Wilson had to say will leave you stunned. It's no secret that Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise has some detractors scrambling to find reasons to downplay her success. Whether it's media personalities, other WNBA players, or self-proclaimed experts, there's been no shortage of voices questioning if Clark's success is really about her skills on the court, or something else entirely. But when a player like A'ja Wilson, a face of the league, throws shade, it hits different. Stay with us as we dive into the relentless criticism Caitlin Clark has faced, featuring comments not only from A'ja Wilson, but also from other WNBA players who haven't held back their thoughts on Clark's rise. Are these comments rooted in genuine concern, or are they simply outbursts of envy towards the player who is capturing the spotlight and changing the game? One thing is clear: the friction between Clark and some of the WNBA's biggest names is heating up, and it could have explosive consequences. Could this animosity be enough to drive Caitlin Clark away from the league that so desperately needs her? Stick around as we reveal the real story behind the tension, and what it means for the future of women's basketball. If we are looking for a personification of Caitlin's arch-rival within this storyline, it would undoubtedly be her nemesis from their college days. Angel Reese, an explosive 6'3" forward who made her mark at LSU and now competes in the WNBA, is often positioned as a counterpart to Clark. But in reality, their approaches to the game and their impact couldn't be more different. While Reese may have claimed a victory over Caitlin in their college days, Caitlin's relentless dedication and skill have seen her rise above, leaving Reese trailing in her wake. Caitlin Clark has gained widespread admiration for her sportsmanship, her incredible basketball IQ, and her commitment to elevating her team. Angel Reese, on the other hand, seems to thrive on being seen as Clark's opposite, relying on her physicality and a confrontational approach to make her presence felt. Her brash demeanor and outspoken nature often overshadow her on-court performance, leaving many to wonder if her focus lies more in making headlines than honing her game. The contrast between these two players is striking. Clark embodies finesse, precision, and leadership, while Reese embraces aggression, controversy, and swagger. And just when you think the rivalry couldn't get any more heated, Reese's comments have added even more fuel to the fire. What did she say that has everyone talking? Stay tuned to find out.
I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
It's not just the active WNBA players taking shots at Caitlin. Former players have been piling on too, often feeding into the media frenzy to keep themselves relevant, especially when it means throwing shade at Caitlin. Since they have nothing to lose, these retired players are often even more shameless, trying to deny Clark the accomplishments she has fought so hard for. Take Lynette Woodard, for example. The former NCAA scoring record holder for women couldn't help but let her jealousy show when commenting on Caitlin surpassing her record, attempting to discredit Clark's achievements in a way that's as petty as it is transparent.
My record was hidden from everyone for 43 years. I don't think, I'll just go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. I don't think my record has been broken because you can't duplicate what you're not duplicating. So unless you come with a men's basketball and a two-point shot.
Compare that to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who congratulated LeBron immediately after he broke his NBA scoring record. For some reason, it seems harder for older stars to accept Caitlin Clark as a legitimate force in women's basketball, so they construct ridiculous charges to somehow relativize even her statistics. Woodard didn't have a real reason to sound this bitter, and she showed bad form towards a fellow basketball player. The hate hasn't been limited to words either. Many defenders have taken it upon themselves to attack Clark brutally, either to put an end to her dominant scoring runs or just to send a message. These weren't just strategic attacks. Some of them were outright assaults with no other purpose than intimidation. The most infamous example came at the hands of Chicago Sky guard Chennedy Carter, who viciously clobbered Caitlin while they were waiting for an inbound pass. It wasn't a basketball play, it was an unprovoked attack. The footage shows Carter delivering a hit with intent, sending Clark crashing to the floor without reason. A media storm erupted after the game, demanding an explanation for such an ugly display. Yet, when questioned, Carter remained unapologetic, masking her actions behind the guise of competitiveness. But let's call it what it really was, an act of frustration and resentment against a young star who's taking the league by storm.
I'm going to compete no matter who you are and no matter who's in front of me. So that's just what it was. Heat of the moment play, we're getting at it, we're going back and forth. It's basketball, it's all hoops. After we finish the game, it's all love. I don't have any regrets with anything.
But that's not all Carter had to say. In a shocking turn, she's now pointing the finger directly at Caitlin Clark, accusing her of being the reason her career has taken a nosedive. Carter claims the hate she's received since their infamous rivalry has been too much to handle, suggesting that Clark's rise has cast a shadow over her own ambitions. According to Carter, the relentless comparisons and the pressure that came with facing Clark ultimately led to her career's downfall. Caitlin's rise wasn't just about her success. It was about making sure there was no room left for me, Carter continued. The constant hate, the comparisons, it all took a toll. I felt like I was being erased, and that's why my career ended the way it did. Carter's perspective is downright delusional, blaming Caitlin for her own struggles instead of owning up to her shortcomings on the court. The truth is, Carter's lack of growth and inability to match the skill level required at the highest levels of basketball is what truly led to her decline. People who are paying Caitlin Clark are also known to relativize things when it suits their interests. A lot has been made of the fact that Clark's base salary for this year is in 5 figures, which is shocking after she had one of the richest NIL deals in college that easily had 6 zeros. It's pretty much a consensus that Clark is currently grossly underpaid as one of the faces of the league, but WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert doesn't seem to agree.
Caitlin has the ability to make up to $500,000 just in WNBA wages this year, so of course they're just looking at a base which is collectively bargained, and actually it's low because she's the #1 pick, she'll make a little more than that, but she also has millions and millions of dollars of endorsement.
One would think that the money Clark makes from endorsements is not something she owes the league, and that the benefits reaped by WNBA by Clark's decision to turn pro are worth much more. Of course, the boss has to reinforce the company line in a public interview, but from her answer, it appears that Engelbert really doesn't understand what all the fuss is about. WNBA is not doing a solid job promoting Caitlin Clark's stardom, and the financial benefits have mostly been directed towards the league, rather than the player who is responsible for the sudden spike in revenues. Online commentators have seized the opportunity to debate which of the stellar rookies has the upper hand in this budding rivalry. While most of the conversation has been reasonable, there are instances when the opinions have been obviously partial. A great example of this color-based approach was provided by the retired WNBA legend Sheryl Swoopes, who is black. Swoopes is open about supporting Reese and went as far as to rationalize the hard foul as a normal basketball play.
It's the clip they want to post because they're going to get all these likes and reposts, but that's a basketball play. She hit her in the head, so of course it should be upgraded to a flagrant 1. Refs looked at it, they upgraded it. Can we keep playing basketball? My thing is, like, every time Caitlin gets fouled, we can't make it seem like she was assaulted.
Such rhetoric ignores the fact that somehow, it's always Caitlin who is ending up on the floor in rough encounters, like the ones with Chanity Carter or Angel Reese. This is sometimes explained as a byproduct of her physical build and a lack of toughness. However, it's possible to view these arguments as thinly veiled racial stereotypes, taking us back to the old black versus white trope that used to be very prominent in men's basketball a few decades ago and still rears its head from time to time. As far as commenting on the impact of racial identity on American sports, there are no more widely respected authorities than ESPN's talking head Stephen A. Smith. Despite his penchant for bombastic quotes delivered in his typical, highly animated manner, Smith was pretty even-keeled when providing his opinion about the contrast in styles between Clark and Reese. Here is his take on this complicated and contentious issue.
So you could say it's race. I don't think that that's what it's all about, but race always plays a role in something like this to some degree. It's not completely out of the equation. It's always that, because America is America.
While he never said that Clark being white is the primary reason for favorable portrayal in the media that she is mostly getting, Stephen A. reminds us that the question of race might be in the back of everyone's mind. He definitely respects Caitlyn and wants her to succeed. A'ja Wilson, a two-time WNBA MVP, has been more vocal in her criticism of Caitlyn, and while she avoided outright spite, her comments made it clear that she refuses to acknowledge Clark's greatness. A'ja brushed off the idea of Caitlyn being the greatest college player ever, dismissing her due to the lack of championship trophies. But let's be honest, this isn't about championships. It's about feeling threatened by the rise of a new star who's shining brighter than ever. When the established names feel their spotlight dimming, it becomes all too convenient to downplay the achievements of those on the rise.
Ooh, that's tough because you got to win one. I feel like that college is one of those spaces where you got to win one for them to even have your name in the conversation. And it took me 3 years to win mine, so it's hard. But congratulations to her.
But that was not all A'ja Wilson had to say. She once again reignited her public disdain for Caitlin Clark, this time targeting Caitlyn's decision to decline joining the unrivaled league. According to Wilson, she herself was offered more money than Clark, but still feels that Caitlyn shouldn't have received an offer at all. Wilson's comments made it clear she doesn't believe Caitlyn deserved the attention from Unrivaled, stating, "They shouldn't have even bothered offering Caitlyn anything. She's not ready for this stage, and it was a mistake to act like she is." It's shocking to hear a player of Wilson's stature making such harsh and unwarranted remarks. To dismiss Caitlin Clark, who has proven her talent time and again, shows just how far Wilson is willing to go to undermine her. This kind of behavior reflects poorly on Wilson, and it's clear that the rivalry is getting personal and petty. ESPN anchor Elle Duncan provided a fiery defense of WNBA veterans, taking a strong stance against what she perceived as undue praise for Caitlin Clark. Duncan argued that the league's established stars deserve the spotlight and shouldn't have to share it with a newcomer who hasn't yet proven herself at the professional level. Her passionate approach, however, seemed to go beyond simple support for veterans. Instead, her words took on a tone that almost vilified Caitlin, raising eyebrows among viewers and fans. Some questioned whether Duncan was intentionally stirring the pot to add fuel to an already heated debate, while others felt her approach was a misstep in supporting the league's future growth. Her choice of words was curious, perhaps even calculated, as they hinted at something deeper. And just when you thought she was finished, Duncan dropped one final statement that left everyone stunned.
Who are these girls? Who are these girls that are hating on Caitlin Clark? Are you just combing through Twitter? What else are these women supposed to do? Fawn over her? Fangirl over her? Bend the fucking knee? Kiss the ring? Like, what do you want from them?
Some commentators might deliberately stir the pot just to grab extra clicks and shares, but Gilbert Arenas takes it to another level when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Known for his brash attitude during his playing days, Arenas has only amplified his outspoken persona with his online talk show. On an episode of Gil's Arena, Arenas went out of his way to undermine Caitlin, comparing 18-year-old Juju Watkins favorably to her while chatting with fellow analyst Shannon Sharp. The way he spoke about Caitlin was far from neutral. There was an edge, almost as if he had a point to prove. Arenas' words seemed calculated to diminish Caitlin's accomplishments, making it clear that he was more interested in stirring controversy than offering an honest analysis. It was yet another instance of Arenas using his platform to throw shade, and this time, Caitlin was his target.
If Juju was allowed to come out in the draft, Fever they will regret that they took Caitlin Clark number one. Caitlin is great. He's not Juju. If they match up in a tournament, 1,000% Juju is going to pick her up full court.
Does Gilbert really believe Indiana Fever will regret taking arguably the best college player ever with the number one pick? Or is he just fishing for controversy? It can be hard to say, especially given his track record. On the surface, he gave Clark his respects, but then he put her in a hypothetical situation that won't happen in real life. We could argue that it's the job of a talk show host to touch on hypotheticals and provoke reactions, but Agent Zero might have missed the point when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Geno Auriemma, the veteran coach of UConn's women's basketball powerhouse, has made it abundantly clear that he has no intention of supporting Caitlin Clark's rise. He is far from the only basketball coach to show a shocking lack of tact when discussing Caitlin, but his words carry an extra sting given his stature in the sport. Despite his incredible resume, including 11 national championships, Auriemma has repeatedly chosen to undermine Caitlin, offering opinions that blatantly sell her short. It's hard not to see his comments as anything but hateful. He has gone out of his way to paint Clark as overrated, positioning himself as one of her biggest detractors. This isn't just an outlier opinion. It's a consistent effort to diminish her potential for dominance in the WNBA. The following quote leaves no doubt. Auriemma has an agenda, and that agenda clearly doesn't include giving Caitlin Clark the respect she deserves.
She's just not built for the physicality of this league. And she's not quick enough to get away from the physicality. So there's a lot of learning curve, like Diana said. And when she gets it, she has elite skills that are going to really help her. But she needs to be on a better team, and she needs to be more experienced.
The argument about the lack of physical strength isn't new, but calling Clark too slow is really unexpected, even coming from a deep basketball mind with proven expertise. Also, his poor appraisal of her teammates on the Fever seems excessive, especially considering the presence of the 2023 top draft pick, Aaliyah Boston, on the squad. While in this case, racial identity doesn't play a role, both Auriemma and Clark are white. The master strategist of the women's game was likely motivated by factors other than basketball when he said that. It's impossible to ignore that the most hurtful comments about Clark are usually personal in nature. The thesis that Clark is only popular because of the color of her skin and her traditional Middle America background has been repeated in many places and left a permanent trace in the media discourse. One person has shouldered most of the blame for the prevalence of such a view, and that is none else than Jemele Hill, former ESPN host who is always on the front lines of racial struggle, for better or for worse. We would all be very naive if we didn't say race and her sexuality played a role in her popularity. While so many people are happy for Caitlin's success, including the players, this has had such an enormous impact on the game. There is a part of it that is a little problematic because of what it says about the worth and the marketability of the players who are already there. Hill was quoted in a Los Angeles Times article that also features a few other experts who gave their 2 cents and tried to contextualize Clark's viral fame that just keeps growing. The intention may not have been bad, as the article seeks to identify the factors that contributed to her meteoric rise and evaluate the state of affairs in women's basketball. However, most Clark's fans were insulted by the insinuation that she is undeserving of her status, and that she was singled out solely due to her race and sexual orientation. Thus, Jemele Hill was accused of race baiting and earned the reputation of being one of the biggest Caitlin haters on the internet. Some may think it to be too harsh of a sentence, but Hill has no one but herself to blame for putting a foot in her mouth. As evidenced by all the disparaging comments, Caitlin Clark has become a prime target for the WNBA's misplaced criticism, a shining star the league frankly doesn't deserve. The relentless negativity directed at her reveals not only the league's insecurity, but also how undeserving they are of her talent. Caitlin's name is constantly dragged into all kinds of discussions, from comparisons with veteran players to wider social issues, yet she refuses to sink to their level. Instead, she continues to show grace, even praising those who criticize her, demonstrating maturity beyond her years. It's truly shameful that a league in need of young talent like Caitlin chooses to undermine her potential rather than celebrate it. Caitlin knows it's impossible to please everyone, so she focuses her energy on what she does best, putting the ball in the hoop. No amount of chatter will silence her critics better than her consistent excellence on the court. The WNBA may not deserve Caitlin Clark, but her actions speak louder than their petty attempts to bring her down.